Okay, so get used to hearing the word death a fucking lot. I'm going to be saying it so much the Grim Reaper is going to think I'm asking for him to slice my dick off. But for real, why is death such a common and tossed around word? Maybe it's because it is everyone's endpoint in the journey of life. We all are doomed to meet that light at the end of the tunnel. Our higher power, or the blackness and endless void. Depends on your interpretation, but death is one of the only things in life that we cannot control. It causes an endless fascination with this very idea. Death has been documented ever since the beginning of time. We have so many moments in history and pop culture references that are all traced back to the very principle of death. From the Ring Around the Rosie lullaby to stuff as blatant as burials in cemeteries, death is surrounding us. Cemeteries serve as a particular reminder that our mortality can end at any moment. So, keeping this in mind, it's no surprise why people are so interested in the concept of death. As previously stated, death has and will always be documented. This is seen in many forms such as newspapers, obituaries, tombstones, and Mondo films. Traces of Death, for example, is a Mondo film series along with Faces of Death, in today's episode, the Death File series. The Death File series, also known as the Arquivos de Muerte series, is a shockumentary and Mondo film series that focuses on documenting death in its purest form. There's even a show host of sorts at the start of these movies. These movies contain authentic and their own footage that they went out and obtained. Each film focuses on a certain theme, whether that be just street crime, medical gore, war, and even just messed up situations throughout the world. They were made in Japan, but what makes this series so interesting is not only does it seem to go on forever, but also has a Brazilian counterpart. In one of the very few things I was able to dig up, I was able to figure out through forum posts that the series Arquivos de Muerte, also known as Death Records, is a Brazilian counterpart to this series. In order to reach more of the world and reach a South American market, the production studio that made these films sold the film rights to a distribution center in Brazil. This Brazilian distribution center would then release the movies, however, underneath a different name and out of order, that being Arquivos de Muerte. These movies are not stolen footage, but rather the same movies under a different name. I would say same loosely though. This series, Arquivos de Muerte, does have a few small differences. As previously stated, the Arquivos de Muerte series is out of order. Arquivos de Muerte 1 is actually Death File 5, and with the rest of the series being messed up even further. Surprisingly, it's so messed up that not only Death Files 1, but also 3 and 4 and New Death File 2 are all missing from the Arquivos de Muerte series. What makes this counterpart series even more interesting is that they aren't just simple renames of the Death Files series, but are also reproductions of the original series. The reproductions add an up in quality, helping to remove some of the grain and give a slightly more clear picture. One of the best features, though, is in the addition of reinserted clips from the original tapes. You see, certain clips weren't added into the original releases of the Death File VHS tapes, however, they were added into the Arquivos de Muerte VHSs. The most notable addition is the extra 30 minutes added onto Arquivos de Muerte 12, corpus, which is also known as death body. With such a complicated background as this one, however, who the hell made these movies? This production company is named Mad Video Productions and are owned by the Japanese company V&R Planning. The V&R stands for Visual and Retail, and this led into the company setting their eyes on graphic and shockumentary material. These guys are responsible for distributing the Death Files series in the world, the Arquivos de Morte series in Brazil, the first 2 Traces of Death film, and a series known as Junk Films. We will get more into that series later. They also had another company who released movies produced by V&R, also named Cell. These guys were behind such infamous pieces of media such as Death Women, Death Body, and terrible... Motherfucker. Ugh. The man... God damn it. Oh, that was a good cough too. The man who made Terrible Meals also responsible for Squirmfest on Tier 7. And just to bring it around full circle, this same man, Sumusu Segusa, aka Karu Adichie, also created the wonderful Death Files series. He remained as the director for every single entry in the series, which consists of Death Files 1 through 5, New Death Files 1 through 3, Mediums and the Dead, Omnibus, Death File Red, Yellow, Black, Buster, Naked and Dead, Gray, and The End. The only difference in the release of these movies is Mediums and the Dead comes between New Death Files 1 and 2. The Death Files series serves as a really unique and, to be honest, awesome rabbit hole to dig through. The levels of things that the series connects to is absolutely intricate and intriguing. The series has many installments within, and the series connects to many different movies within Tier 6. As previously stated, the movie's production company, Mad Video, had released the first 2 Traces of Death films, and we remember how that series went with its complicated history and companion pieces. However, Death File is even worse with the Arquivos de Morte series. Now, I understand some of you will want a video over the Arquivos de Morte series, but I don't really see the point given it's literally the same series with minor alterations to them. It also connects to Orozco the Embalmer through a director who worked on Junk Films, which is another series released by Mad Video. Orozco the Embalmer will be covered in its own video, but Mad Video even has a YouTube channel after their parent company shut down their production studio to only have them stay on as a distribution center. These next 2 parts are without a doubt the most interesting but also oddly creepy things that have spread throughout the world. On the Mad Video YouTube channel, we follow a Japanese girl in a diaper as she does simple stuff like going on walks or playing with friends while in a diaper. This is by far one of the weirdest things I've ever stumbled across, especially when the videos are nothing like the cover art at the top of the channel's page. It's so strange and downright disturbing that this cover art even exists when the videos are just normal mundane activities done by a woman in a diaper. However, to make this even more weird is the comment sections on these videos. People who openly praise these individuals and their content, but even those who enjoy it, maybe a bit too much. Within these comments exist ones that timestamp certain moments within the videos. Well, some of them are the main characters making silly faces into the camera. But others... yeah. Now, who would be watching these on YouTube and actively engaging in the comments to the point of allowing someone to snap to a suggestive moment of one of the characters in a compromising position? Those who probably have an age play fetish, and yes, that is basically akin to adult. It's so strange that someone can actually sit back and enjoy this. The theories of what led to mainly come from a lack of ability to form healthy relationships with adults, along with a lack of self-confidence. These traits, slapped on top of a want to stay young and sees adolescence as something to be conquered and replicated, makes for a disgusting combination that eventually reaches a boiling point. What makes these comments so disturbing is that they exist in plain sight and are not trying to hide from what they are saying. This makes for one of the creepiest topics I've ever covered on the channel, for how real modern is and how commonplace it sometimes can feel. But as I said, there's one other major connection that deserves a deeper look. You enjoy gaming, right? Who doesn't enjoy the easy task of picking up a controller, a mobile device, or portable console and entering into a world that isn't our own? Many games have stood the test of time and have become classics. Many of these classics are sometimes my favorite video games of all time, whether it's Super Mario Bros., Mega Man, Castlevania, or Minecraft and Call of Duty. Gaming has been a simple pastime that makes life a little less stressful. Video game content is everywhere on YouTube as well, and one of these video gamers is none other than the Angry Video Game Nerd. The Angry Video Game Nerd, played by Cinemassacre's founder James Rolfe, is a YouTube series where the nerd reviews games he has complaints about. Every now and then he will review a game that he may enjoy, but for the most part it's a series about making fun of the worst video games of all time. In Angry Video Game Nerd episode 134, he looks over a specific game for the Super Famicom, the Japanese SNES, and makes a shocking discovery.
Now that I've digested all that, let's play the game. One hit and the game's over. Why would I expect anything more? No. Oh, please. I hope that's not a real dead body. No, there's no way they'd have such bad taste. That's got to be an actor. Or we're looking at some guy who died on that date and time in 1992.
This game is called Hong Kong 97, a game where you play as Chin, who is someone with Jackie Chan's likeness, to take on the Chinese communists or fucking ugly Reds. The game was produced by Japanese businessman Kowloon Kurosawa, and many of the elements in the game are things from around his home and neighboring town. He was the one who came up with the story for the game, and had the intention of producing one of the most immoral and illegal games in gaming history. In 1990s Japan, the Super Famicom had an anti-piracy law set in place, stating that anyone that wasn't officially licensed by Nintendo could not make games for the Super Famicom. When coming up with the story, Mr. Kurosawa had spent many of his days in Japanese shops where he would buy old technology, gather obscure movies, and so on and so forth. He would eventually make a piracy add-on for the Super Famicom that eventually resulted in a cease and desist from Nintendo. However, he kept his invention and made a game with a developer from Nintendo, and this is what led to the creation of Hong Kong 97. The story goes as follows. Chin, who is stated to be Bruce Lee's cousin, is set against the main villain of the game, a Chinese dictator that is a mockery of the name of the real-life Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping. Chin's mission is simple: to kill all 1.2 billion of the fucking ugly Reds and defeat the dictator before he becomes the ultimate weapon. Gameplay is also simple, with Chin just blasting enemies to death. However, when an enemy is killed, a poorly rendered image pops up where the enemy was killed. We see an explosion followed by what looks like to be someone laying down dead on the ground with a blood-soaked background taking up the border around him. This is a strange addition to the game, but what is even stranger is when you die. On the game over screen, the same man from the enemy death animation appears on screen in full view. The image is disturbing to say the least. It's a still image of recorded footage detailing the discovery of a body on August 6th of 1992. Where did this come from? Well, thanks to the Nexpo video and this video here, we now know. It came from New Death File 3, or the actual title people found it under, Arquivos de Morte Guerra Civil. This title translates to Death Record Civil War, and is a Mondo film surrounding the Bosnian Civil War. This Bosnian Civil War was the result of a breakup of Yugoslavia and the provinces within the country breaking out into warfare to gain control in the fallen country. As a result of this war that raged for 3 years, multiple deaths were recorded and the footage would be compiled into monofilms like this one today. However, despite this, one question remains. Who is the man in the video? Despite the publicity surrounding this one specific clip and game over screen with 2 multi-million subscribed channels discussing said screen, the identity of this man has yet to be discovered. There were rumors of it being a Polish boxer named Leszek Bielinski. However, these rumors have been since debunked and the identity thrown back into the air. This simple unknown portion of this screen and its background sets it firmly in the uncanny valley, an area where it may forever remain until the end of time. So why spend all this time looking over this series and all of the strands that connect this very complicated web of mysteries only for me to say, do not watch it? Mainly because the point of this series is to educate on the matter, to help with one's curiosity, and that my video will be the endpoint of said curiosity. It's a mesmerizing sight to see how messy this whole story became, but nonetheless, I think that this should be enough for those who are actually curious. The Death File series and Arquivos de Morte series is a shocking display of real authentic Mondo films shown from around the world. These are not simple mixtape films and do not have the large influence over mixtape films of today like the Traces of Death series did. But if there's one thing that remains, it's this. The Death File series is one of the most convoluted series I've ever looked at. The rabbit hole that it brought me down is one of the craziest and most unique things I've ever had the pleasure of discovering and talking about on my channel. I truly never had so much fun trying to track down information and discovering some of the things that I did for this video. So, congratulations on a happy 2,000 subscribers. Finally though, and I am only going to say this once, do not watch the Death File series.